I'll turn it on. So for now, do you mind just stating your name and your title for me on camera?
Jeff Pereira, Program Manager with the White Ribbon Campaign.
Okay, and what do you do in your job? What's a day in the life of Jeff?
Well, basically what I do is I spread awareness and word about the White Ribbon Campaign and our message, which is working to redefine masculinity and as a result helping to end violence against women and girls and creating a space where people can just be who they are regardless of their gender or sexual orientation. And that means me going to do workshops at high schools or universities and colleges, different community centers and spaces, presentations, talking to folks, just any projects and programs that we're working on to help educate and create awareness, working with youth and children and teachers and professors, etc. So that's the gist of what I do. Yeah.
So you mentioned redefining masculinity. How would you define masculinity right now in society?
Good question. Masculinity in 2012 is very diverse, but it's also very similar wherever you go in any space around the world, any culture, country, community. A lot of it is around being assertive, being tough, being capable, in control, having all the answers. So that means that you don't need help, that you know everything about sex, that you're not, you don't back down. Because the idea is that you're in control and that you can handle it. And this is a impossible, unattainable idea and state of being for a human being. So this idea of what it is to be a man, for us at White Ribbon, the key is to kind of rejig that, redefine it, and say let's step back and take a look at this and look at, more importantly, how it's impacting us on a daily basis and how it's impacting the lives of women, the lives of LGBT people, and heterosexual males as well. So, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I know that you presented Words Speak Louder Than Words here at Ryerson, and you argue that a lot of the words that we say in here have more of a meaning than we tend to think that they actually imply. I know at the beginning of your presentation you mentioned the meaning of the word guys, and you talked a little bit about how if you walked into a room and said to a bunch of ladies, hi guys, they wouldn't care, but if you walk into a room and said, hey ladies to guys, they'd be all offended.
Oh, yeah.
Do you mind expanding on the meaning of the word guys for us?
Yeah, well, I mean, the guys has become a gender neutral term, and the idea is that, you can call anyone regardless of their gender, how they identify, guys. And, obviously consciously people aren't thinking of it, for the most part, in a way to kind of, judge or anything, but when you start to unpack and think about the word and why it's been given this green light to be used for anybody, and you think of how other words would not be used, so for example, ladies, or calling everyone, women, that would not stand for a lot of men, and for some women as well, because it's important for some people to have a clear definition and distinction between men and women. But the problem is that distinction is built up in a lot of ideas of value and devaluing, of power and lack of power, and of superiority. So, when you start thinking about, for example, insulting words, I think the greatest way to look at language and people's behaviors and attitudes is the way they insult each other. So the greatest insult I can throw at another man is to feminize him, right? I can call him, girly or soft, and then they can go down to horrible terms that are, female genitalia, and then calling him homophobic terms. Because the homophobia and transphobia, the root of it is sexism, is this idea that, a man's supposed to be a man, look a certain way, act a certain way, and be capable, be tough, and anything outside of that is considered feminine. And same thing if a woman acts a certain way and looks a certain way that's not fitting this narrow idea of what a woman is, she's called a bitch, she's called, lesbian, all these different terms to kind of push her back and know your role kind of thing. So, you think of the impact of words and what we're saying, it's really strong. And the problem is that we're so desensitized to it that we don't, on the surface, even appreciate or understand the nuances of what's going on when you hear these different things. Because these words are triggers and they push you in a certain direction to be something, usually to be something that you're not.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what other constructions of gender have society created for males?
There's so many different ways in which the idea of what it is to be a man affects people. I mean, the way that men dress, the way that men, their physical being and health is a big piece. Mental health, physical health. So, for example, this idea of even just going to the doctor. When I do workshops, I ask people, how many of you know a man that will not go to the doctor? No matter, if it's your partner or your father or your brother or a friend, that no matter what's going on, the simplest to more complex issues, they'll ignore it, from a common cold to possible, heart palpitations and stuff. They'll just say, oh, it's okay, I'll be fine, I'll shake it off. And part of it is this piece where men feel a fear of vulnerability. So it's a fear of saying that I can't do this. I need help. I can't figure this out. And that problem then leads to other issues. And when it comes to physical states of being, the idea is that you need to look physically that you are capable and can handle things. And we associate in society this idea of man as muscular, as tough looking. And the idea of feminine is considered soft and petite and all these different things, because that goes with the stereotype. So when you have a guy that is differently able, say it's a man in a wheelchair, he's seen as less of a man. I love to point at that film Avatar, because it's a great example of a guy who was a U.S. Marine, and I don't know the story very well, but in the movie he's a man in a wheelchair. And the message of the story, the underlying message is that he'd rather be a blue fuzzy creature running around than be a man in a wheelchair, anything but that. So you think of like what that means for men, the pressures that men have to be not just healthy. That's not the goal. The goal is the appearance of health, the appearance of being strong. I think of guys going to the gym. I used to have a trainer, a personal trainer, and we'd go work in the weight room, and these guys would be physically look like you would think they're in shape. They're huge and just big, but she would explain to me how from the waist down they're not capable of running up a flight of stairs. You could probably do a better job than them, and their joints are out of whack, and they don't have their core is not in shape and things like that. Because for them, it's the aesthetic, is to look that I'm jacked, that I'm shredded, versus actually being in a state of health, right? And that's the problem, is that we create these ideas of masculinity based on perception versus something tangible, something real, and that's in all aspects. And when you think of mental health, it's another thing too, like not reaching out for help, reaching out for advice or for support. So in all aspects of the state of being in health, for men it's this kind of mask that they put on the appearance, and it's a mask to themselves, so they can't even focus or come to terms with it on their own. So they won't even look in the mirror, the proverbial mirror, right? So they're not going to be able to talk about it with even a partner or a loved one or a family member or even a professional counselor. So. Ooh.